Good evening and welcome to Suffering in Silence with Evangelist Tia here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. And Love Bay family, we're continuing to rise out of the ashes together. Our topic on this evening is moving forward. And we have with us our co-host, Jennifer Peterkin, and also Erin Mitchell. Listeners, if you have any questions or comments for our co-host on tonight, it's a group thing on this evening. You can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com, or you can text us at 437-778-3299. And as usual, if you have any resources that you would like to share with us on a national or local level from your country, your community, any local organizations, or your faith community, you can also email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. And with that, Jen, I will ask you if you would go first and greeting our listeners on tonight.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. So nice to be back on Love Bay. I am a little thrown off. I'm in the UK right now, so I'm like, is it evening? It's evening. Actually Saturday for me right now. So
Wow.
but yes, I am, as always, honored and privileged to be on Suffering in Silence with Evangelist Tia and Erin as well. So my name is Jennifer Peterkin. I am a domestic violence survivor. That's how Tia and I met and connected, and it has been an honor to just walk beside her as she has kind of conquered a lot of this as she moves forward in her ministry. So I'm honored to be here. My own project is called The Human Experience. It is a podcast where I travel the world to interview people about their stories and how what they have lived through has shaped who they have become.
Wow. So, Jen, right now, are you traveling and interviewing for the human experience, or is this just personal, or are you killing two birds with one stone?
That I am two birds, one stoning. I like to multitask as much as possible. So I do have an interview here in London coming up in a couple days, but I am also taking in some of the sites while I'm here as well. So
Awesome. So, Erin, if you would take a moment and greet our listeners on tonight.
Yeah, hi everybody from Love Bay Radio, all the listeners around the globe. So good to be with everybody tonight. Again, just to reiterate, I'm super honored to be here in this conversation on moving forward from violence, from trauma, from oppression, however you want to define it for yourself. So excited to be here with Evangelist Tia and be a part of Rising Out of the Ashes organization. This is an amazing team, and this was a part of my list of gratitudes that I wrote several pages yesterday, and these folks were on top in this organization. Such an honor to be a part of it. So thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you both so much. So Love Bay, we want to give a reminder of what we're doing right now for Rise Out of the Ashes is we're going through our process of raising funds so we can continue to do what we do. And as mentioned before, some of the things that we do, and I believe Jen gave us this description, and I just love it. We try to fill in the gaps where we do fill in gaps where domestic violence agencies may not be able to do so, or they just can't. I mean, I know myself and Jen, we've gotten calls, I can say 2-3 o'clock in the morning to be there to help individuals. We have, through our organization, Rise Out of the Ashes, we've paid for doctor visits. We've provided transportation for individuals to get from one place to another, literally one state to another, to get to a safe place. We've helped with clothing, food, school supplies, toiletries, education. We've just paid for a couple college courses. Someone contacted me and she wanted to go back to school, and I said, we're going to help you make this happen. And we did that. But I did that personally out of personal funds. So again, what we're trying to do is raise funds so I don't have to keep doing that. So if you would like to help us financially do what we do, you can go to GoFundMe, visit our page, look for Rise Out of the Ashes Inc. And whatever you give to help us to continue to help others, we appreciate that very much. We want to again share Pastor Darius Daniels. He's a pastor of Change Church. His website is dariusdaniels.com. His YouTube channel is Darius Daniels TV. In the United States, we want to share the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Their website is thehotline.org. Their phone number is 1-800-799-7233. We want to share again the Befrienders Volunteer Action to Prevent Suicide. As we know, we are in a holiday season, and the holiday season is a tough time for a lot of individuals, whether you're dealing with domestic violence or not. So the Befrienders Volunteer Action to Prevent Suicide, you can find a helpline by country if you go to their website, which is befrienders.org. And then in Canada, we have the Ontario Native Women's Association. Their website is www.onwa.ca, and their phone number is 1-800-667-0816. And we want to remind you all again, no matter where you are, you can look for resources wherever you live. You can look for your national organizations, which can direct you to local organizations closer to whatever state or city you live in. So with that, listeners and viewers, we're going into our topic on tonight, which is moving forward. We're ending this year, moving into the next year. This year has gone by so fast. And I really wanted to start by saying, and then I'm just gonna, Erin, you can start us off. No matter how the year started, 2023, no matter how it started, no matter what has happened during this year, no matter what is happening right now, keep going. Just keep going. Like, that is the very first thing that I want to say as we're moving from 2023 to 2024. And that's not to say that it's easy. It's not to say that it feels good. It's not to say that, we have all the answers and it's just coming together and just will click right away. But that is to say, as I've said, no matter what the year has looked like, no matter what it feels like, keep going, because you can, and you don't have a choice but to. So just do it. So with that, Erin, I go to you first as we jump into moving forward.
I was thinking about this tonight, and the first couple days I thought, well, I don't have anything to offer. I don't have anything to offer this conversation, because all you do is put one foot in front of the other, and that's all I got, and it took a while for me for things to start to come up, that maybe they were things that I can look back and say to myself, okay, part of moving forward is one of the biggest blocks for me looking back in moving forward was telling myself that there are other people that have been through worse. Mm-hmm. And and that's a fact, and that's true. And that's just a part of me that has empathy and understanding for everybody's experiences. But what that did was it prevented me from facing the reality of what I experienced. And then I kicked the can down the road for asking for help. And so to the point where I just told I really was living in a space of not even knowing I needed any help. And so it took some physical issues to start to present themselves in a way where I ended up at a doctor's office who took one look at me and was like, "You need a therapist," you know? And so then I was in a therapy room with a woman that I ended up working with for several years. And at the time I had health insurance through my job, thank God. And that covered it. I know not everybody has that opportunity either, but I think the point is if I even was aware that, you know, that I needed support or that I deserved to share my story with somebody who could support me, you know, in a non-judgmental way, in a therapeutic way, I think I would have gotten farther faster. And I think we know more. And I think like things like this radio show, and just having people speak up about their experiences with what Jen is doing, with what Evangelist Tia is doing, through the organizations that I work with. These are the ways where like the sharing becomes the permission for somebody else to share their own story. And then, you know, and then you kind of like, oh yeah, but back then this was in maybe 2000 to 25 years ago. That wasn't, I don't know. I was young and I was dumb and inexperienced and didn't know that things like this existed. And maybe they did, but I think there's a lot more right now. So yeah, I'll just end with that.
Well, so I think things, maybe not like the radio program on this level, this stature, but I think there were avenues of help that did exist 25, 30 years ago, but not a lot and not well known. And I mean, you know, even in my case, it wasn't that long ago when I was looking and searching for help for myself. I can say 10, 15 years ago. And it was hard for me to find what I needed. Granted, part of that could be I was looking in the wrong place, because the first place that I went was the church. So we could say that the church was not equipped to do what needed to be done to help individuals, in my case, to help those dealing with domestic violence on several different levels. So I think there just was a point in time, I'm quite sure there was an organization, there was a kind heart out there, but it wasn't a lot. So I don't think it was what it is today. And it's certainly not as easy as it is today to find information. If you have a telephone or a computer, you can find whatever you need. Even if you don't have a computer in your home, you can go to a library, a workplace, or any area that's open and that's free. So you can find a laptop if you need to use one. But yeah, today it's a lot easier. But I am so glad you started the way that you started. And what I vividly remember just from a few moments ago, you saying putting one foot in front of another. This for the past few weeks, I want to say the past 3 or 4 weeks, I've just been really excited for myself. I've been excited in my heart because I can look back over where I started from a few years ago. I think it's been 9 or 10 years, something like that, since I've left my situation. I really forget count. I forget the number, but I've been away from my ex for about 9 years now, at least 9 years. And I was really thinking what I've accomplished. Next May, I will finish my bachelor's degree. And actually today in the mail, I ordered a frame for my degree. I already have it. The frame came today and it is beautiful. It is gorgeous. I did not expect the frame to look the way that it does. But I've been thinking about that. I'm getting ready to finish my bachelor's degree. I already have plans. Once I have that, I'm going to roll into my master's. I have plans after that. When I get the master's done, I'm going to roll into the doctorate. And I just had a conversation with my advisor. I don't have to do it in that order. I could actually get my doctorate now, get it first before the master's if I want. But that's not the order that I want to go in, because of, Jen, what we're doing with the nonprofit. I want to stick with the master's and get that done first. The doctorate is just going to be one concentration. And I know I'm just going to concentrate in the area of domestic violence and then go from there. Um, but I was thinking about that. I'm happy about that. I'm proud of myself for that. I'm proud of where I am financially. I am in a much different place than I was 9 or 10 years ago. That took some effort. I'm in a different place mentally, emotionally. I'm in a different place physically, with working out. And I'm just in a different place. And for the past few weeks, I've just been really happy about that. But I did not get to today overnight. I got to today because 9, 10 years ago, I had to put one foot in front of another. 9 or 10 years ago, that's all I could do was put one foot in front of another. And so as you're moving forward, we're talking about moving forward to someone listening or viewing on tonight, moving forward for you, it might look like safety planning. It might look like putting your plan together. And that is absolutely fine. That is great. If the end of your 2023 looks like I'm putting a plan together for myself to be safe, for my children to be safe, to get myself out of this situation of domestic violence, that is great. It does not have to be, I'm about to step in a spaceship and I'm flying to the moon. If you are, great, that's wonderful. But if you are able to get up and move around and go outside and just enjoy the day, as opposed to succumbing to or being stuck in a depressive state or mode, if you made some success or progress with that, then that is moving forward. So we don't want to take away anything from anybody. Whatever your accomplishment is, there's no little thing, there's no big thing. It is, if it's for you, if you did it, if you made a move, it is great. So putting one foot in front of another is how I got to be where I am today. Putting one foot in front of another, that's how I crossed paths with Jen. That's how I eventually met Erin. That's how I got to this radio program. That's how I met a whole lot of people that I know today who are now helping me do what I do, helping me move forward in my purpose. It on this morning, I just decided I'm ready to write my next book. So I reached out to Jen. I said, I'm ready to do it. This is a topic, and I want you to be a part of it. And I'm ready to go. But I couldn't have done that this morning if I hadn't started with those steps I had to take years ago. And again, not to say that it was easy, because I'm telling you, it was hard. It was scary. I didn't want to do it. I didn't know how to do it, but I did it. And that's just what you do. Jen, you want to add something in there?
Yeah, I think that the term moving forward is kind of a misnomer. Because something that we say all the time on here is that healing isn't linear. And so I think there's this idea that moving forward means that you have to constantly be achieving something, achieving like the next thing in your, even if it's small things. And sometimes the best thing that you do in a day is waking up, and that is an achievement. That is a something that is a blessing and something to be thankful for and proud of. Um, but I think it's important that we realize that sometimes lateral moves are maybe it's not moving forward, but it's the only thing keeping us from sliding backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important that we realize how strong those lateral moves can be as well, or even just the ability to stand still and stand firm and, plant your feet somewhere, not permanently, but in a way that allows you to just weather whatever storm is passing through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that doesn't knock you backwards. So, um, yeah, I just think, especially when we talk about healing and getting into a space that you feel good again, it can be really frustrating when it feels like it's moving at such a glacial speed that you're never going to get there. And it can absolutely feel like that a lot of the time, especially when you start out on your healing journey. It
Mhm.
can feel like this is never going to be, I'm never going to be okay. I'm never going to be a complete person again. I'm never not going to feel like a shell of a human. And I think all of us sit here saying that's not true, but I think we can also all say, but I also felt that way at one time,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, I would just say, um, you're doing the best that you can is the best thing that you can do for yourself, and also that moving forward doesn't always mean going in a forward motion.
Yeah. I think over the years, something that I've learned, and this was a huge lesson for me. There, over the past few years, there were several times I came to a place where I felt like, okay, I got it now. I'm healthy, I'm whole, I'm in a good spot. This is it. And then something happened, and it pushed me backwards emotionally. It pushed me backwards mentally. A panic attack came out of nowhere, or something came up, and it just a thought, a memory, a situation, and I felt like all right, I'm at ground zero, starting again, rebuilding myself, but it's not, because that's part of the process. So you
Mhm.
can feel like today I'm on top of the world, and then tomorrow I'm like, God, I don't want to get out of the bed,
Yeah.
because you just go through a moment like that. But I learned through this that just happens. That's okay. It's normal. And so there can be things that come and maybe knock you off center a little bit, and you deal with it. Or there can be things like the new project book that I'm going to work on. I have to intentionally, for me to move forward, I have to go backwards to complete this book.
Mhm.
I have to revisit, specifically, I have to revisit pain that I experienced in this year, 2023. So I have to willfully, purposely, intentionally go back into this year and revisit some things that hurt me. I don't like it. I don't like the way it feels, but it's still a part of my healing process to move forward, to get this project done. And not only is it a part of my healing process right now, because I love writing. No matter what I write, it just it's, for me, it's a deeper space of healing. But not only am I going to help myself, I do believe someone else somewhere will be helped by what I do, because I have to go backwards a little bit and pull that out in order to go forward. And that's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
Um, I can already say I don't like it. I can anticipate some of the thoughts and feelings that I will have to deal with. I don't like it. I know it's not going to feel good. It's not feeling good right now thinking about it, but it's part of the process. And in the end, it's worth it. And I want to say I'm willfully going backwards to work on this project. And even if it's a moment, as I said before, if something just knocks you off center, it's okay. You just don't stay there. You just, however the situation came about, you deal with it, and you deal with it in your own strength. You deal with it in your time, and you deal with it in your own way, but you keep moving. Um, and I guess maybe just moving is better than the phrase moving forward. But
Mm.
you just keep moving. Whatever that looks like for you, you keep moving. And as you are moving, I want to say, and then Erin, I'll ask you to add to this. Give yourself credit. Pat yourself on the back. You may be the only one who's there to give you a hug. So wrap your arms around yourself and do that. So as whatever your accomplishment is, whatever your goal is, whatever your thought is, whatever it is that you are doing, if it's creating a safety plan, if it's reaching out to make a phone call, to get information, if it's completing a degree, getting another job, going back to school, whatever it is, give yourself credit for doing what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece of it. And it goes back to what I said in the beginning about my block of having the voice in my head of saying, you know, other people have it worse. And so when you say give yourself credit, I think of that in the affirmative, you know, and we all have to really create that self-talk that doesn't add to the challenge, that doesn't add to the obstacles. You know, we live in our heads 24/7, except maybe when we're sleeping, but then not even that, because our thoughts affect our dream state as well. So, you know, so it's really vital to do what Evangelist Tia is saying about, you know, creating that patting on your back, but creating those affirmative, positive reinforcements to your psyche, to your spirit, to, you know, to your physical. Even, you know, let's say you're hurting, let's say you have lower back pain. Well, take a minute to, you know, support and give your body some affirmations around having healthy organs, having, you know, that you're able to walk today, that you're able to see, that you have eyesight, that you know that you can taste something that is delicious for you. So that you're not pounding on the body with your thoughts and with your negative self-talk that happens inside. And then sometimes that carries forward with our friends, right? Like I mean, we all still probably do it because it's a habit. And I know I grew up with that, but you know, you'll hear a friend kind of self-deprecate or talk badly about herself, right? And then the kids hear that, right? And then, you know, so it's energy that gets put out there. So I think really coming up with that first thought that you wake up with before, you know, when you wake up and when you go to bed, is patting yourself on the back and being able to say something positive to yourself or out loud to the mirror. But really that wake and, you know, first thing when you wake up, first time before you go to bed, say something kind to yourself. And that will really, you will be very surprised at the positive impact that will have on some of the other challenges that are very real, and some of those obstacles that you're having to face.
Yeah. Jen, you want to add to that?
Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, I think self-compassion is the most important arm of compassion, because if we I think there is something to, if we can't love ourselves, how are we able to love others fully? You know, and I think there's a lot there. There's a lot of nuance there, but I think that self-compassion is such an important part of how we show compassion to other people as well. So I absolutely agree. I think it's a huge part of a healing journey and your moving journey. And I would also add that we get so caught up with where we are supposed to be and how far we are supposed to have come, and that can be really difficult when you are triggered or re-traumatized by something, because you think you have healed through something, and you then realize that there's another layer to that you're discovering now. So just as a another word of encouragement to say, there is no timetable for healing. And there may not be a time when you don't feel triggered by something. Like it will get better, but it's okay that this still affects you. It makes sense that it still affects you. And in fact, I would say there is a certain power that comes with that, because you now have a vein of empathy that not everybody has access to. And it was not earned in a way that it never should have happened, but you do have access to it. And so the next time you're feeling a certain way about a response that you have to something, to certain stimulus, or a re-traumatization, and you're getting frustrated with yourself because you're like, it's been 10 years. Why aren't I over this? Just know that, first of all, you're not alone. Second of all, there is no timeline. And third, that um, emotional state of being allows you to be a helping hand for somebody else.
Can I just say one more thing too on that topic? Is one of the things that I learned much later, but is in the same vein, is really finding a buddy that you can share your wins with. Like having, like, when Tia, when you were sharing about that, with the frame that you ordered and your path of like where you've come from, you're sharing your wins, and that is so invigorating to witness, and I think that if we have somebody to share those wins with, like that, when we're patting ourselves on the back, yes, we do that as a practice, as a daily practice with ourselves, but then we find that trusted someone where it's not called bragging anymore, right? Like we were all told, oh, don't brag, don't put attention on you and all these things, but really it's a very healthy way to remain on your path of moving forward or moving. And so I just wanted to share that has been a really important part of my practices of just having a trusted friend, or it can really just be somebody that wants to do the same. And so you start off the conversation sharing about those patting, the reasons you're patting yourself on the back, instead of going right into all that's happening, all that's going wrong. You can like start off on that foot with that person.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point too. Jen, you were gonna say something?
I was just gonna kind of echo that and say that reframing is a incredibly powerful tool when we're talking about things that happen, and a positive mindset versus a negative one can be the difference between a great day and a terrible day. Now, with that being said, I will say that there is such thing as toxic positivity, and we do need to be careful that we are leaving space to process and grieve the things that have happened.
Yeah.
But there is certainly something to be said um, for reframing things in our minds and in our lives. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an awesome thing to do. And so Love Bay, for some of you moving forward or moving, it may be just working on your communication. Change your communication. Every time that I'm with Jen, if we're hanging out or if I'm with one of my other friends, we're not always talking about domestic violence. That's not what it is. So um, if you find that that is always your conversation, whether you want it to be or not, something is wrong with that. You do need to change. At some point, you do have to come out of yourself. And I think a way to move away from, to deal with, and to get out of domestic violence, I think, is to be able to see yourself out of it, which means you have to be able to have conversations that you're out of this. You have to be able to see that your life is more than the situation, if that is what you're dealing with. Even if domestic violence is in your past, that still is not your life. That is not who you are. So you need to be able to look beyond and see if there's a job that you want, if you want to switch careers, if you just want to enter something new, you have to be able to see yourself doing that. So talk about it. Have a conversation. However you want to move in your life, you need to be able to talk about it. You need to be able to not be in denial. You do have to give yourself truth, but at the same time, you have to give yourself support. You have to support you. You have to encourage you. You have to be able to look beyond the moment and know and see that there is life beyond. There really is. And I think a huge part of that is communication. So again, every time I'm with Jim, we're not always talking about um, suffering in silence or the human experience. It's not.
Yep.
And I think moving forward is a part of that. It's having a life. It's developing who you are. Is being able to hang out with friends. Is being able to watch a movie, talk about whatever. You can talk about nothing. Just go eat ice cream, have lunch. It's being able to grow and develop within yourself, which is hugely normal and natural. And we should all, on some levels, be able to do that. Um, and Jen, you mentioned triggers earlier, and I wanted to say, I believe we've made this point on a program previously. You don't know what a trigger is until a trigger happens.
Yep.
So it's okay. If there is something that you know is going to be a trigger to you, that's because it's happened to you before, and you know how to deal with it, or you're learning how to cope with it. If something happens and it's never happened before, and you are alarmed about it, if you're moved about it in a way that it just really gives you alarm, that's okay, because you don't know until you know. So now it's like, how are you going to deal with it? Um, and this year alone, I've had some triggers. Most of them were familiar to me, except for one in particular. I actually saw a family member of my ex-husband out of the blue in a place I never, ever, ever would have expected to see this person. And I had not seen this person in years on top of years. When I saw him, I heard his voice before I saw him. Immediately, I was triggered. I panicked. I went through the whole nine. I had a total, complete meltdown. I didn't know I would react that way to seeing a family member of my ex-husband. I didn't know until it happened. I never even thought about it, but I had that experience. I got through it, and now for me, I know if I do happen to see a family member or a friend, now I can think about that within myself. What am I going to do? How am I going to handle it in that moment? Because had I been prepared for it, I would have handled it differently. I would have done something completely different. I didn't like the way that I felt. I didn't like what happened to me on the inside, my emotions, my mental capacity. I didn't like any of that, but I didn't know until it happened. That was out of my control. I didn't plan for it. It's nothing that I would want to happen again, but it is what it is. And it's okay to not know as you're going through and dealing with it. And with that being said, I want to say you learn from your mistakes. First of all, you learn from things that happen, situations that come up. You can keep in mind how you deal with it going forward. But then also sometimes we make a mistake, So I've made some mistakes this year, 2023. I've trusted the wrong person on occasion this year, and I paid the consequence with broken trust, and it hurt very, very badly. But I learned a lesson from that. I made a mistake in finances this year, but I learned from it. The mistake that I made earlier in the year, I was able to do some things differently towards the end of the year, and it paid off for me because I made a mistake and I learned from it. I didn't keep doing the same thing over and over again. So I want to speak to that point of learning from your mistakes. It's okay. You trusted the wrong individual. Okay, then we go back to boundaries. Reset your boundaries. Made a mistake, a decision, a career move, something with school, whatever. But you pay attention to it. You don't let it slide, and you keep letting the same things happen over and over again. But you take it. Don't come down on yourself. You don't destroy yourself. You don't just throw you away, but pay attention and learn. And I think that's just part of being an adult. So if you guys could just touch on that point, learn from your mistakes. You learn from life.
Go ahead, Erin.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great one because I had quite a few this year, but what I have noticed about my mistakes, they are, um, they don't take as long to learn. I honestly
Yeah.
feel like now, it was decades to learn.
Right.
And now it's like maybe a few months. And then I'm awake to it. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this is not going.
I have enough therapy under my belt.
Yeah, exactly. This is not going the way that, there's something off about this thing. And so I'm going to pump the brakes, back it up, and, see and start to pay attention. What's happening here? How am I getting myself all wound up about something? How am I in this situation? Um, are there some tough conversations I need to have, or do I need to walk away? Or, how can I prevent this from happening again? Right. Like you were saying, you course corrected, Tia, like, from the beginning of the year. So I do feel like I cleaned up. I've gotten better at just catching myself sooner.
Yeah.
And mostly what I'm talking about when I'm speaking about mistakes is my mistakes with relationships.
Yeah.
Not necessarily romantic, could be, but friends, people, acquaintances I meet, people that I'll meet from the dog park and invite you somewhere or something like that. So it's just really kind of not wanting to shut down and isolate, which is one of my tendencies. I have to find where that is a strength, like where I actually need my alone time, I need my space. And then where that becomes kind of something that turns into me not wanting to do the hard work of being in a relationship with anyone, whether it's a friend or an acquaintance or whatnot, and so that's kind of where I have noticed that it takes a lot less time for me to realize that I'm probably not in a healthy situation. And I will say this too: the good part about what I've learned is that usually it has to do with me. I love that, right? Because then I have the power, I have the power when I recognize like what I'm doing to perpetuate something. So, yeah.
Well, I think that was an awesome point about the timing not taking as long, because I've noticed that within myself on this year. When I see something is wrong, I know something is wrong. It does not take as long as it would have taken me years ago. So I am not into you get 3 or 4 chances to do what you did. No, you proved it to me that one time. That's it. And being able to recognize it sooner, being able to recognize it faster, it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean that it's not disappointing, but it does mean that I know when to do whatever I need to do to not let this drag out for me to be hurt any longer, for it not to continue. So I think that's a great point, because that's something that I've seen. And I'm proud of myself for it. I'm proud of myself for being able to see this and call it what it is. And for me, a huge thing for me when we're dealing with relationships, and Love Bay, I've said before, I see everything through the lens of domestic violence. That's my experience. But I am able to see and know when I'm really not reacting to this person or situation, but I'm dealing with something in my past. I'm dealing with something in my heart that still has to do with domestic violence itself. And I know I have to work on me, as opposed to I also am able to see, no, what you just did was wrong, and there's no explanation for that, and I'm able to deal with it on that level. So I'm proud of myself to be here, because that was not overnight. That took some time, but it was a lesson that I learned, and it was an experience that I got that is helping me today. So I appreciate that within myself, because it's not an easy thing. It's not, when I say I see everything through the lens of domestic violence, that doesn't mean that I'm looking to be hurt. It doesn't mean that I'm looking for something that's not there, but it does mean I'm mindful. And it means that I am paying attention. And there are some things that I know I will not let slide because I know what it will lead into. And I think that's a part of growth. I really do. So, Jen, you want to go in here from, learning from mistakes and everything like that?
Yeah, I think echoing what you've both said already, which is that it's not going to be perfect from here on out, right? Like things are still going to happen. I think there's a fear that comes with knowing that level of hurt,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's part of the healing, is understanding that you can heal from that hurt and put yourself out there again. And again, it doesn't have to be in the context of a romantic relationship, but if you are in a domestic violence relationship, that will affect all of your relationships, right? Like that it just changes how you see everything. So, um, it's not that everything is going to be perfect from now on and you have all of the tools and you never need to second guess, things again. But I do think that it's important to note that just because you make a mistake doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong necessarily. Um, so, you put your trust in the wrong person. You followed through on a relationship that you thought was going one way and it ended up going a completely different way. It's not something to beat ourselves up over. I think we can get really down on like, how did I not see this coming? Like,
Yeah.
I have lived through this already. Why did I let this happen again? In those situations specifically, I think it's important to push back on that and say, well, it's not my responsibility that somebody else chose to treat me that way within a relationship, right? There are
Mhm.
things that we can control and there are things we can't control. So removing yourself from that situation is something that you can control. Choosing to set boundaries with people is something that you can control. How people behave towards you is not something that you can necessarily control. So I think it's important to kind of take some of the morality out of that, of those decisions sometimes, um, because it doesn't do anything for us. It doesn't serve us at all. And it's not about right or wrong at that point from that perspective.
Yeah.
I think too, um, kind of like what Erin was saying, you have control over certain aspects of what you do, and your reaction is the only thing that you can control, right? We cannot control what other people choose to do or think or say. But we have control, we have autonomy over ourselves. So that's powerful. And harnessing that power it's like stretching a muscle. It takes practice. There is a lot of a big part of us that wants to say, well, no, if this person just did this, like everything would be fine, or everything would be perfect. And unfortunately, the world doesn't work like that. We can't, even if that was 100% true, we still don't have the power to do that. But we do have the power to uh within ourselves to move in a space that says, well, I'm going to remove myself, or I'm going to put these boundaries up for this on this relationship.
Yeah. And I think when you're not just relationships, but when you're dealing with relationships, if it's friendships, platonic relationships, romantic relationships,
Yeah.
there is a certain level of faith and trust that you do need to have moving forward. And that means that there is a chance that you will be hurt. You will be hurt mentally, emotionally. Now, physically hurt should not be on the table when we're talking about on this level. But getting to know someone, entering into a relationship or a friendship, you have to be vulnerable on some levels. And that means that you're getting to know this person romantically or in a friendship, and this person could end up hurting you. And again, not physically, but mentally, emotionally. So it's like you have to take a chance. I had to take a chance on my friendship with Jennifer. I had to take a chance on my friendship with Erin. So on some levels, you do have to like that vulnerability has to be there. That's what a friendship is. It is. So again, as Jen said, nothing is perfect, and then it's not going to be perfect. But when I go into this with my good faith, with my good intentions, and if I see things are going left a little bit, I can change it. I have that control. As Erin said, I can control how this is going to go, and I have learned I'm not going to let this go on for months and months and years. I've learned that. I've learned that in the past. And so thinking in that situation, most of the time when we think of moving forward, or just moving at all, we think of new things. We think of trying a new career, a new relationship, a new whatever. But I want to say, in moving, sometimes you got to give yourself a chance for a do-over. Sometimes you got to just take another chance, but use the lessons that you learned previously. So, and I think that's a part of learning from your mistakes. Like there was a few months ago, I think maybe springtime, summertime, there was a financial mistake that I made. I paid attention to it. I learned from it. And I wanted to do the same. I made the same financial decision at the end of this year, but I learned what I did the first time. I saw where my mistake was, and so I did something different. So I went into the same financial decision, but I got the outcome that I wanted because I did it the right way, because I learned from what I did wrong the first time. So sometimes, yeah, you give yourself another chance to do it. And I mean, unless something is just, if it's just absolutely disastrous, and it's just blowing up, okay, we get it. You got to move on, because you also have to know when to move on and move away. But just give yourself another chance. Sometimes all is not lost. If you just take the time, do some reading, do some learning, speak to a few people. Maybe you need to read some books, do some research, whatever it is. It could be you need to get with your support group or your support system, talk, bounce some ideas off of each other. Or for instance, if there's a particular career that you want to go into, find someone who is already in that career and get some information. You don't have to throw everything away if it doesn't work that first time. And again, we're not talking about something that's just disastrous and just has you, physically hurt or anything like that. But sometimes you can make a mistake. And I really believe that there are some mistakes we made. They're good. They're good mistakes. They happen for a reason, and it helps you moving forward. And so with that, we have a few minutes left. So I would ask you both, what would be, I guess, your piece, because we really are ending 2023, and I cannot believe how fast this year went. But learning from your mistakes, giving yourself a chance to do things over, taking a chance, knowing that everything is not going to be perfect. So do not look for perfection, because you will let yourself down doing that. But what would you each say to our listeners, our viewers, on, just the point on how to just keep it moving?
I thank you, Evangelist Tia. I would say that in terms of there's a phrase that I heard when I was watching a marathon, and it was, I don't know who it was. It was like their aunt or there's somebody that a loved one was encouraging one of the marathon runners. And I heard her screaming, yelling, dig deep, and it was pretty close to the finish line. And I love that phrase. I have it written in a bunch of different places. Dig deep for me is also like finding people in my life that I know on a personal level, and even people that that may be more on a public level that I've never met before, but people that I've witnessed digging deep, where I've seen them like go from one place to another, and knowing that they had to do that digging deep. And I think just in terms of the marathon, you know, for some of us, and this is myself included, this pertains to me, like when I dig deep, it's not when I'm at the end of the race. My dig deep is coming like way, like it's kind of in the beginning a little bit, but then the middle is when I need to dig deep.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I've gone so far and I'm like not seeing the results yet. I'm not halfway there. There's nothing, you know, it's not at the end of the race when I dig deep. It's like, it's somewhere. And I think we all have a place where we know where that is. It could be different in different scenarios, but just kind of getting the pulse on what that is for you, and then calling in that motivation and that inspiration, whether it's people you know or experiences where you can look back at yourself and seeing where you dug deep and then, you know, kind of did it, whatever that did it is. And you know, could be, you know, as a mom, you know, like how many dig deeps, right, that you have to, you know, as a mother. And so there's a lot. And so that would just be a phrase that I would put out there to support people and moving forward, just kind of tap into what that means for you.
Awesome. Jen?
Yeah, this quote came to mind that I actually read while I was going through my divorce, and I remember it just like striking me so much at the time that I read it, and it still comes to mind often. It's a quote by C.S. Lewis, and it's about love, but love in the context of all things, right? Not just romantic love. So it says, to love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything, and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully round with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. To love is to be vulnerable. And I remember reading that for the first time when I was going through my divorce, and I was just a couple of months off of leaving, and really in a bad place. And I don't necessarily think I would have used the word vulnerable as something that I was actively avoiding, but it certainly wasn't something that I was working towards either. And I think that there is something so valuable and beautiful about our ability to be vulnerable as human beings. It is a treasure and a gift. And so, in that sense, it should be treated as such when giving and receiving. But it is required. It is required for deep, meaningful connection with each other. And just because we have received hurt and we have been taken advantage of, our vulnerabilities have been taken advantage of, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we should give up, because truly to be vulnerable is to be human. And it is such an important part of our humanity.
Yes, it is. That was absolutely beautiful. I love C.S. Lewis. And I remember that quote. So the last thing that I want to say, Left Bay, to you, and let me first start with saying full disclosure, I was not upset about my divorce. I was happy. When I got my paperwork, oh my goodness, I can't explain the joy that I felt. So I know everybody might not be in that space, but I was happy to get that final divorce decree. I was. But having said that, that's out of the way. I want to say, as we move forward, or even as we said before, just moving. Sometimes just moving hurts. Sometimes just moving means that you do need to let go. Sometimes moving means a divorce. It means that you may lose whatever you have financially. I lost my finances. I had no money. I lost my home. I lost my car. I lost my marriage. I lost everything except for my children. That was a loss. And in doing what's best for you, you might feel like you're losing. You might feel like, this is it. You might feel like this is the end, but it's not. Sometimes losing, sometimes letting go is the beginning. So I want to encourage everyone, no matter where you are, you can be in what you may describe as a good place, and you're just building on top of building something that's good. Or you may be in that place where you are hurting and you are broken. And I am not making light of anyone's situation, because I know what that feels like. I know what the devastation feels like. But you won't stay there. And I'm telling you, to get to one spot, you got to leave the spot before. At one point, was I hurt about being divorced? Yes, absolutely. I was hurt about losing my marriage. I was hurt that it wasn't what I believed it to be and what I wanted it to be. But when I got to that point of acceptance, this is what it is. It's not going to change. I cannot allow myself to continually be hurt. And so my joy, my happiness came from, yes, I'm good. I'm free. I'm safe. I can start over. Sometimes, well, a lot of times starting over is scary, but you can do it. So again, moving forward doesn't always feel good. It won't always put a smile on your face. You may be scared. You may not know what to do, but the point is to do something. And that's what we really wanted to encourage you with on tonight. You are in control of you. You are in control of your life. So you move however you need to move, even if it looks like you're moving backwards to somebody else. This is you. You know what you do, how you need to do it, what you need to do. Stick to your process. What works for you may not be what works for somebody else. And that is absolutely okay. So as you close out 2023, Thanksgiving in the United States, it's a wrap. That's in the book. Now we're moving forward. We're going to get through Christmas, and soon enough, we're going to be in the new year. And we're just all going to keep moving together, fast or slow, up or down, left, right, however you go. Just keep moving. And that's what we want to leave you with on tonight. So, Love Bay, if you want to catch up on previous episodes from our program, you can visit our YouTube channel, Suffering in Silence DV. I thank you, Jen and Erin, so much for being with us on tonight. Jen's still traveling the world, and Erin's on the other side of the world from where I am. But I thank you guys for being here. Love Bay, I thank you for joining Suffering in Silence with Evangelist Tia here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. And Love Bay, we want you to remember that we are rising out of the ashes together. Good evening.